Hi everybody, I'd like to show you a card today. It's a really simple card, but it's a technique that I did while I was at Crafting Live recently. Now bearing in mind that I was on a stage where we didn't have the big cameras we usually do, so I thought I'd like to show you the technique again where I can really get in and show you close exactly how it works. So I'm going to be using kraft. It's going to be quite a contemporary card, and I'm going to do some stamping. So I've got some rare earth stamps. I've got some Tim Holtz embossing ink here and some gold embossing powder. Now I'm not sure what brand this is because I always put my embossing powder, gold, silver, black, white, the ones I commonly use, into a pot so I can use them like that instead. So a gold embossing powder. I have Chameleon Pencils here. Now these are lovely. They've got a very soft lead to them, so they blend beautifully and they really show up on the craft card. You can use these, or you could use watercolour pencils. They would work just as well. You don't then need to mix them with water, just use them dry. I've got all my glues and adhesives and things like that, so let's get started. So I'm going to go onto a piece of craft cardstock and I'm going to stamp a flower. Now, like I said, this is from a rare earth stamp set. I've done the other two flowers already, the rose and the chrysanthemum. I'm going to do the lily, and then I'm going to die cut it out as well. Now, for stamping this, I've found, because I'm going onto a craft cardstock, it's quite textured. I need to put quite a bit of pressure onto my stamp. So I'm going to use a load and fold from Rare Earth rather than using instead like a big acrylic block, because the acrylic block is thicker. I find it harder to put as much pressure onto the stamp and get all that detail. So if you're going onto a smooth cardstock, it should be absolutely fine, but I do find the load and fold brilliant when I'm using a textured cardstock like this. So this is just a scrap of cardstock, so it doesn't matter whereabouts I actually stamp. I'm just going to go here and make sure that's all stamped. Looks like it. Now, because this is craft, it will dry very quickly even with embossing ink, so work as quickly as you can. There we go, and I'm going to dry this so you may not hear me for a moment. Lovely. So there I've now got my gold lily. So I'm hoping I can get the light. Oh, there we go. There's the light just catching it. Isn't that absolutely beautiful? It's gorgeous. So I'll put these away. I'm just going to put the lid onto my embossing powder because otherwise I will knock this over. Put my stamp away. And then I've got the coordinating die with this. Now, not all dies come with not all stamps come with coordinating dies. But if it doesn't have, I mean, this in particular is quite a simple image. I could very easily cut this out by hand. Get your fussy cutting scissors out. In fact, while we're on the subject, my favourite fussy cutting scissors are these ones. They're not specifically for fussy cutting, but they are Fiskars ones, and they're very sharp. They're actually embroidery scissors, so if you want to have a look for some small tipped, very sharp scissors that you can use for fussy cutting and things like that, the Fiskars embroidery ones are perfect. But today we're actually using a die, so don't worry about that. Cut the excess out. I'm using the snap machine, so I'm just going to pop this into my plates and run that through the machine. There we go. So that has cut out beautifully, and I'll still have the gold embossing, so just release my tape from there. Clean that up in a moment. And there is my die cut element still with that gold around the edge. Gorgeous. Now I'm going to add some colour to that, and that's where my pencils come in. So the leaves, I'm going to add some green. Now I'm just going directly onto the craft cardstock, and I'm pressing quite hard. I'm using quite a bit of pressure, little strokes. Now the colour comes off beautifully because it's a soft lead, so I'm adding colour between the embossing powder very easily. but what I'm not doing is going over the embossing powder. If I went over the embossing powder, what I would risk doing there is actually pulling the embossing powder off. So for example, here we've actually got, I'll show you a bit closer, we've got in the middle there the gold embossing powder. I'm going to go around it instead, okay, using my nice dark teal. So I'm pressing quite hard here, and then I'm going to continue the next layer a little bit lighter, and again, and then the outside of this particular flower is going to be white. Now even the white shows up absolutely beautifully on the craft. There you go, so pressing hard at the top, really getting it a strong colour, and then working my way down, carefully going through the gold embossing. There we go, and then I'm going to blend it in. Like I say, watercolours will blend beautifully as well. I'm just going overlapping the blue there, and then bringing it up a bit. And if you want to go in again with the teal blue colour, add a little bit more, you can do that. But that should blend quite well as it is. Beautiful, there we go. So there's our flower coloured in with the gold edging to it. Right, put my pencils away. So now I'm going to build up my card. What I've got is I've got the lily. Like I say, I have already done the rose and the chrysanthemum. I kept them all the same colourway. You don't have to do that. You can do different colours. You could do pinks, whatever. Even just grayscale, black and white would be lovely, particularly if it was on a white card. So I'm going to arrange these, but before I do that, I've got some base layers to put down. So what I'm going to put down is actually some thread. Now this is just ordinary sewing machine thread or cotton. I'm going to pull off a couple of feet of this and snip it, and then I'm just going to, without too much manipulation, I'm just going to lay it down onto my card like so. Okay, whereabouts I'm going to put my images. Now I'm not going to play with that anymore. I'm going to pop down my flowers. I've got foam pads on the back, and that will hopefully hold in. Now I like to overlap my card a little bit. That will hold all that thread together. So I'm going to cluster these flowers quite closely. So that one there, the next one, which is the chrysanthemum, is going to go here. So again, that's now holding the thread in. I'm just going to apply the foam pads to the back of this one. I don't want to be able to see them, so if you do have clear foam, or if you want to use your silicone glue or something, that would be perfect. Now flip it over before I stick it down and make sure that none of the corners of the pads are showing. There we go. And then place this one over the top there, like so. Now I've got a printed sentiment here, just a note. Now with this, I've actually printed it on the printer onto printable vellum. It's absolutely gorgeous when it's finished. It has that transparency, so you can sort of see the colour coming through. Now I've trimmed it myself by hand into a banner. I'm just going to add a little bit of glue. Let me just release my glue. It seems to have dried up, so wet wipe round there and see if I, there we go, it's all clear. Should have tested that first before I started filming. And then a little line of the wet glue just along there. Let me put the lid on that. Now I'm going to tuck that underneath this chrysanthemum just to hide the glue there. And then lastly, I've got some Nouveau crystal drops, and I'm just going to dot these around. So some larger. So I'll do my larger ones first to make sure they are evenly spaced. And then another larger one here. And then I'm going to go around and do some smaller ones as well, just to finish this off. Now teal is absolutely my favourite colour ever, I think. So I do go through stages. I don't know about everyone else. I do go through stages with colours. It'll be greens one day, it'll be, I don't know, sort of pinks. For a long time when I was little, purple was the colour, but I'm now into teals. There we go. So there's that finished. Now if I just hold that up for you, I don't want to smudge the crystal drops, but hopefully you can see there we've got all that dimension, we've got the texture with the threads in there as well, and then as you turn the card you can see you've also got the gold from the embossing powder on there as well. Look at that, isn't that beautiful? And there we go.